Hello, everyone. We are back with another boom from CreateIRL. Me and Romina, we're here again. Romina, how are you? Doing okay?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Is this
I
your
had the, I
intro?
had this thing I had this thing like figured out before, but I blanked.
Yeah, you were so excited. You're like, Romina, I'm going to take over the intro
Yeah,
today.
that's my intro. That's my intro. It's a different take on it. It's a different take.
All right. Well, the boom is it's supposed to be a raw interview where we bring professionals on to meet our creatives here at Create IRL, and we kind of bring them down to earth. We ground them,
Mm-hmm.
because
Our
our
standards.
right, yeah, we bring them.
Sorry.
We like to reveal their secrets, take
Mm-hmm.
a deep dive into their
Yeah,
creative process. And today we have a special guest.
very
She
special.
she is not only a creative herself, but she is also a content strategist, and she really loves helping professionals to craft their personal stories and find their voice and share it on social. So
Wow.
today, our special guest is none other than Karla Gregg.
Hi,
Welcome, Karla.
I'm so happy to be here, especially with you two. It's gonna be fun.
Thank you, Carla. So good to see you. So good to see you, Carla. Let me go straight ahead and ask you what being the profession that you are and seeing the things that you see every day online. What are the things that you think brands, especially brands, are doing right these days? Like, what are the things that you can see that okay, this is gonna trend. This is gonna be determining what these brands are gonna be talking about and the way they'll be communicating with everyone. What's golden out there?
Yeah, well, first off, I'm not a professional. I'm kidding. But honestly, when it comes down to brands, I think most brands that are succeeding are the brands that are being transparent and talking about the things that matter to them. So the bigger vision, their mission. Of course, every brand that is professional knows these things, but the ones that really lead by that versus by trends. So that's the way that they stand out, by speaking their truth. I've seen a lot of like luxury brands doing this. I mean, also just being more inclusive. I actually was researching Abercrombie this morning because that's one of my favorite stores, and somebody said, oh, their CEO is not the best person. They're not inclusive. And I said, where are you getting this information from? Because just 2 years ago, they changed their CEO and they're actually making change. So even though they've made mistakes in the past, they're owning up to those mistakes and saying, hey, we haven't done things perfectly before, but we are trying to move forward and make those changes. And they're being very transparent about the changes they're making, from the sizes of their models to standing up for things that they believe in, and also knowing when to get involved in the conversations that are important nowadays. So yeah.
That's cool. I think it's cool that you mentioned Abercrombie, which is a place where I model for so long, and it brings back some of those memories.
They're probably making me eat like salad for the longest time with their past CEO, right?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Speaking of memories, what has been your favorite story that you've gotten to share publicly with your audience?
Oh man, one of my favorite stories has been that I got laid off from my dream job working at NBC. Well, I worked for a digital agency, but they were my main client, NBC. So got laid off of that. And right after I got laid off, I said, well, I could cry about it or I could make something happen. And so I decided to become a full-time freelancer. And the first 3 months of getting laid off, actually with Romina, her and I decided to do like the influencer thing solidly for 3 months. We just produced all the type of videos we wanted to. And one of those videos was going to the Virgin Islands to work with this nonprofit, disaster relief nonprofit called All Hands and Hearts. And we got to go volunteer and help them rebuild after Hurricane Maria. So that was pretty cool because it was something I had always wanted to do, work for a nonprofit. And the fact that I was like, actually, after I got laid off, I Googled things to do after getting laid off. And one of them was like, travel the world, sign up for a nonprofit. And I was like, okay, cool, I'm doing this. I Google the most random things like in my everyday life. So it made sense to Google what the heck do I do with my life after getting laid off.
Karla, it's talking a little bit about the pandemic season is impossible not to talk about it still. How do you think people and brands and especially in their social game, how did you see the adaptation of all these accounts to a new way of life? And because everyone started working in a different way, and I guess companies started talking a different way as well. Did it get too much? Like, did we lose control of the whole thing?
No, I think during the pandemic, we actually gained control of our lives. It's so awesome to see brands and, brands that aren't personal brands, but both, actually humanizing and saying like, humanizing themselves and saying like, I make mistakes, I'm human. I am working at the same time as I'm holding a baby. Yesterday, I was actually working with one of my clients. They're a luxury brand. And my client, she was having to talk to her son at the same time because he wanted dinner. He's like less than 7 years old. So she was being a mom and a badass entrepreneur at the same time. And it was so cool to see that, because I think prior people would be more embarrassed about those situations, but it was like nothing was even, it wasn't a problem, and she was even apologizing a little. And I was like, you do your thing. Like, it didn't even bother me. And it's so cool to see that, because we've had to work from home and, adapt to our lives being mixed with our professional life.
That's nice. Do you think because I guess in your work, because I follow very, very closely what you do, and I know that you work with professionals as well, right? You work with some coaches, and there's all sorts of people that you guide, and does it change? What is different from working with a brand than working with a person? Do we need to treat our accounts the same way, or is there a better way to go about our social media life?
I think it is a little bit different. With personal brands, you do have to obviously show up more when it comes to video. But honestly, actually, I was working with a fashion designer who is technically the face of her brand because she's a service provider, but she's still selling a product. And I noticed when she was showing up as a person, when she was treating her brand, like not just selling the products, but actually showing up as like the CEO, she had a huge change in how much she was making a month, and then how much following she was getting, and the tight community, because people were no longer just attached to what she did and her product, but they were attached to her as a person. And I've seen even brands doing this. There was a brand that I partnered with, Levito. They're a skincare company, one of my favorites. And they do promote more so the product and what the product does and the lifestyle of the product, but they still humanize it by the way that they talk more about lifestyle and what it does for the consumer. And on top of that, I saw that the CEO was showing up more and kind of giving the history of the brand. So whenever I onboard a new client, I always put story first, regardless if they're a person or a brand. I always ask them, what's your story and what kind of impact are you trying to create? Because the more you lead with impact versus just selling, it's really going to, help your consumer be more attached to not just what you sell, but like who you are as a whole. They're going to want to be a part of that, that experience, or a part of that community that you're building.
Karla, is there a specific platform that makes you more excited these days? Like, is there this one platform that say, okay, if I would go with just one, it would be that one, and for this reason?
Yeah, I would say Instagram right now, because it is where you get to schedule out content and at the same time show up at the, as yourself and get on stories. You can do IGTV, all of that. But I almost feel like I'm cheating on my first love, which is YouTube. I feel like YouTube is such a great platform, but it requires a lot of work and a lot of dedication. Unlike Instagram, I think now obviously if you want to grow, there's strategy with any platform, but with YouTube, obviously it's longer format content. So you really have to think about it, produce it. But what I've noticed is a lot of the people on my Instagram community who are just diehard raving fans who care about what I have to say. Either if I'm writing a 2-minute, a 2-line caption or a full novel, the ones that are stick around are the ones that came from YouTube. So a lot of people have found me from YouTube. The long format content have come to my Instagram community and have built more of a stronger relationship with me there because I'm responding to it more on a daily. But I think those two are really some of my favorite platforms. And I know this isn't a platform, but in terms of a strategy, it is important to have that long piece of format with content if it's a blog post or if it's a YouTube video. Like those two are great. Of course, with a blog post, you own that because it's on your website as compared to YouTube, but it really drives people to wherever you want them to go when you have that long piece of content. I know it's worked for me in the past. So,
Karla, can you explain, please, TikTok to me? Can you, because I've been there, I looked around,
You've been there.
I flipped things up and down, but I still don't get it. And I look, when I see some of those people there, they have like, it's not like Instagram where a successful person has like 100K followers. They have 10 million followers, and is that inflated? Is that fake? Is that how does that work?
well, I mean, I actually don't use it as much as I should, but I started using it for a client of mine. It's actually like a local travel bureau. I'm from Modesto, so shout out to Modesto. And I just produced a video for them yesterday. I was like editing it, writing, doing the voiceovers and stuff. So I started researching other people, other travel, other cities that were doing things. And honestly, I just feel like TikTok is just a breath of fresh air. It's just, you get to be real, you get to share what's on your mind, but with strategy in a way, because it's only less than 60 seconds and people are there to be entertained. So they want quick information. So it actually makes you a little bit more creative. So when I was producing the TikTok video yesterday, it was like one of the best places to go get a burger in Modesto. And we had recorded the scenes and stuff like that. So it's just more fun editing. Like I felt like when I first started creating, it wasn't overproduced, right? It was just raw, like footage from my phone that my colleague had shot. And then I created like a voiceover. And because I had to be quick, I was watching the content that we shot and then recording a voiceover based off of that. So I wrote something like, if you want to get the best burgers in Modesto, we recommend this one. And if you want a great ambience, it felt fun again. And I think that's why people are so attracted to TikTok right now, because as a creator, you're more just like, I'm just going to have fun. I'm not going to overthink it and see what happens. And as a consumer, because these creators are being more, just letting their guard down, just being wild and creating whatever they want. I feel like consumers see that and are more compelled to want to watch and be entertained. So I think the followers people are getting are organic followers. I've seen some of my friends grow on there faster than they have in other platforms, and I think because of that, them just showing up as themselves, right? And the more that you hold back, you're not allowing yourself to grow, right? Or potentially make a viral video. I know for me, when I've had viral videos, it's the moments that I've not overthought things. So I think to kind of bring that back. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. I love that you just said, you just said to put yourself out there in order to allow yourself to grow. And I think that's one of the things that I've always admired about you is that you just put yourself out there constantly. And it's just like this constant flow of vulnerability, but also there's a strategy behind it. And I'd really like to know what drives you to help other professionals to achieve that same sense of vulnerability and sharing their voice and their story.
It really comes down to helping people get that sense of freedom, because I know for me in my life, I've held back in the past, and I haven't spoken my truth or been upfront of the things that I wanted. I mean, I know when I first started YouTube, I had literally such an opportunity to grow with people actually willing to support me in my community, because I had friends who were 10 steps ahead of me in the industry and were willing to help me if I just spoke up about those things, and I didn't, either because I was too scared or I had limiting beliefs of like, oh, maybe if I tell my friend that if they can help me, they might think I'm using them. All these like things that nobody was thinking, but I was telling myself, if I speak up or if I say something, they might think this of me. And I think that when we do that to ourselves, it doesn't allow us to see our full potential and really grow as individuals, either for personal reasons or professional reasons. And the more that we're able to just say, this is who I am, this is why I'm doing it, it just feels like you're, I'm sure we all have baggage, right? And when we're able to let go of that baggage professionally or personally, you just kind of feel like $1,000,000. You're like, yes, I spoke up. I feel so much better, right? And when we're able to do that with our brands and our business, like the opportunities that could come our way are endless. And I've been now obviously more outspoken and more confident in my brand. And I've seen the change in my personal and professional life when I have spoken up, either when it comes to a personal thing or a professional thing, when I'm like, I want to be a public speaker. And for me, the longest time, like I always wanted to do that and I never spoke up because I thought I had to either be perfect or super confident or have like 1 million followers before I get on a stage. And it happened. I got my first opportunity to public speak like I think 3 months before into being a freelancer after getting laid off, because I simply just went online and I asked people, do you know of anyone that you can connect me to? I would love to do public speaking. Anyone has advice? And my audience heard, and it's funny because as leaders and creatives, we think that maybe we can help our audience, right? If you're doing some people just create for entertainment reasons because they want attention and like they want to be the celebrity, and that's fine, right? But when you're an entrepreneur who wants to help other people, we think that only we could serve other people, but you'd be surprised that my community has helped me in so many ways, just because I've shared things and then they've easily been like, oh, Karla, I thought about you. Don't you do like brand story coaching? I know somebody that, I can connect you with, even if my, the person who I thought was like my lead or my potential customer isn't the one that buys, they're still thinking about me. They're like rooting for me because they know my story and they know that, just by me being myself and opening up about who I am and what I do. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense because, most of us aren't psychic. And so there's really no way of knowing who needs what or who's good at what or who's looking to do what unless they tell you.
Right.
And just constantly telling people, hey, like, this is what I do, this is what I'm good at, then people will automatically associate you like, oh yeah, that's the girl who does that thing.
Right.
Which is really cool. When you were little, did you ever imagine yourself doing what you do now?
Well, I always knew that I wanted to work in media. I've been I could say, I'm going to sound all cool. My family's, been in the media, but my uncles, my mom's 2 brothers, they were radio DJs. So I would go with one of my uncles to the events that he's had. And, I loved seeing him work the mic. And I was always just like, that's super cool. I want to do that. And so I would record with my cassette tape, like talk shows with my sister. They were a little dramatic, but I'm still kind of dramatic, so it's perfect. I grew up to be who I thought I was. Yeah, I always saw myself doing this, but there came a time when I would hear other people's comments like, Karla wants to be in like broadcast, or Karla wants to work in front of the camera. Like, she's too shy. Like, I don't see her doing that. And I started believing those lies. I'm like, oh my God, they're right. I am too shy. So I actually ended up doing more behind the scenes things. Like, I went to college for television production and kind of did broadcast journalism because I minored in it. I was like, maybe when I'm not shy and when I do find my voice, like at least I'll have that backup. And, that's why I'm so passionate to help other people like use their voice and speak up and just be themselves and say what they want and create what they want. And that's why I love personal branding, because it is, you could create this image of who you want to be and what you want to be known for. And so I wish, obviously, sooner, I would have been like, no, I am going to do this. I'm going to be an online star.
I love that, actually. Because I had a similar thing happen to me too, where I kind of, as I grew older, I started to develop my love of film even more, and I realized that it was something that I could do for work.
Mhm.
And as I was doing that, I did have a lot of people that were telling me, "Oh, she wants to get up on stage and do that," but I thought she was shy. And so it kind of became like my thing, where it was like, yeah, I'm shy. And I just like accepted that kind of narrative that people were feeding to me,
Mhm.
where it was like, it's not that you were shy, it's just that you chose who you wanted to share things with,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
so and just because you don't do that in your personal life or publicly doesn't mean that you can't be vulnerable when you get on camera. Doesn't mean that you can't be vulnerable and share these stories when you get up on stage, which clearly you do, because you do public speaking engagements all of the time in front of big crowds and small crowds, and you talk about these stories of about your life, which is they're usually things that you might not share when you're talking to someone one-on-one and like meeting them for the first time. But then here you are, you get up on a stage and you talk about the time where, you know, you lost everything, or like the time where you broke up with somebody. You know, it's like you talk about these moments that are just like, you're like, how could you ever do that? And it's like, you just do it because that's what the job requires you to do in order to tell the story.
Right. And you know, it's funny that you mentioned that, because there's moments I've felt fake, and then I actually I was doing like therapy, and my therapist said something along the lines of like kind of giving yourself not putting so much pressure on yourself, like the same way that you would treat your clients or the people you're trying to help, treat yourself the same way. Because I know I was being really hard on myself in a moment of my life where I couldn't speak out about things that I wanted to, mainly to help other people. I mean, even now I'm going through things where I wouldn't just share it with the whole world because they are private things, and I think that I still need to process and grow from them. So I tell it to my clients, like, you don't have to share all your dirty laundry. Like, you could still strategize and reflect on what it is, how you want to show up in the world. Like, if you don't want to carry that narrative, if there's like a negative narrative in your life and you're not ready to share that, you don't have to. And I think that's the pressure people put on themselves sometimes, where it's like, well, yeah, I do want to speak up and I do want to be more vulnerable on camera, but I don't want to share all my dirty laundry. I've heard that line all the time. And I'm like, do you think I'm out there like sharing everything, like every date I've been on, like every family problem? Like, no, there's things that I keep to myself. Like, it's being a little professional and also mindful of the people in your life, right? Like, I'm not, you know, I mean, kudos to these YouTubers, but you know, the ones that do story time. Like, I'm not a story time YouTuber, so I'm not going to be like crying in front of the camera every second. I could, but that's not who I choose to be, right? And I think that's the power of personal branding, is choosing who you want to be off and online, but not. And I think that's when I was telling my therapist this, like, I just feel fake because I want to talk about it and I feel like I'm holding back, but it's like, it's not being fake. Like, just because, like, if something happened off this camera and I got into a fight, like, that's not the narrative I want to tell online, because that's not who I am. That's like a moment, right? And I choose not to share that moment. It doesn't make you fake just because you're not sharing your entire life story 24/7, you know?
Yeah. So. I know I'm hogging all of the questions here, but I'll let Rodrigo ask another question after I ask this one. What kind of advice would you give a creative who is on social, who wants to stand out, but is in a competitive field like writing or like drawing?
I would say to find the thing that makes you more unique, that people usually comment about your character, your personality, and like leverage that, your uniqueness, like what really makes you an individual. What shows your individuality is what I meant to say. So I have a friend, and I'm not going to call him out, but if he watches this at some point, like, he'll know I'm talking about him. But he is a cinematographer, but he also juggles. And I remember when I met him, I thought he was the coolest guy ever, because like, not only is he super talented behind the camera, but he like also juggles, and like that stood out to me. Like, I thought that was so cool. And I feel like there's ways, either like passions that we have or personality traits that we have that we definitely should use to our advantage and just use those to stand out from the others. I know for me, like I thankfully don't compare myself. I mean, there's moments I do, but as much as I used to, at least, of making progress with people in my industry. I've actually made them my friends. There is people in the personal branding space who I admire, and for the longest time I was like, looking at their website and being like, oh, how can I emulate them? And then I was like, wait, I'm so different from them. Like one guy, shout out to Phil, like he's a nomad. He works with like luxurious brands, like too foofy type of people that I wouldn't want to work with, because I'm more just like kind of relaxed, like, and he's a nomad, so that's just his lifestyle. And then there's this other girl who she's very like elegant, very like you can see her work living in Europe and just wearing these like beautiful gowns. That's like not who I am. I'm just more of like the girl who could be your best friend and is goofy and says things that are on her mind and can cry with you. Like knowing that what made me stand out was my vulnerability. Like that was my superpower, and being able to own that really has helped me because I really teach people to just own who they are and be themselves. And you'd be surprised how difficult that is for people. And that's the number one thing that when people watch my content, they're like, oh, I wish I could do what you do. Just like show up as yourself and not overthink. And I'm like, it's not that hard, right? You just show up, and you sometimes just have to ignore. Most of the time, it's not even people pointing the finger at you and saying, oh, Karla's so weird. Like, I can't believe she does that on camera or whatever. It's your inner critic. So just kind of ignoring that and just telling yourself, like, people are going to hate it or they're going to love it, but I'm having fun along the way, So yeah, that was a long answer, but really just owning your unique passions and your personality. And again, leveraging those, not being afraid to do that.
And how do you think it's, because you mentioned comparisons, you mentioned people comparing themselves, and I think that's a very difficult thing not to do. Right? Like it's especially when you're, I guess, especially when you're younger, maybe, or maybe not, because I guess everyone is comparing, with a different lifestyle and on more visual social platforms like Instagram, all you see are just this incredible lives that is just very difficult to have and to obtain. And how what would you say to a young person that's just starting and it's starting by copying, but needs to find this uniqueness that you said, and this thing that is very exclusive to them?
I would say copy what you can, and meaning, and I'm not saying like copy, word by word what they do. Like, don't copy and paste. You're going to get sent out to jail for that. But like, emulate what you can in terms of maybe the things that you admire. Clearly, you're comparing yourself with this person because there's something about them that you admire, but you're not this person. And no matter how hard you try to be, you're not going to be a carbon copy of them. So really focus on, okay, I like this about them, but that's not really me, and being happy about that. Like, I'm so glad that I'm a completely different human, and how can I add what they have? So a little bit of, it's almost like making something in the kitchen, right? Like, you don't have all the ingredients, right? But what can you take from the kitchen that is good and that you have available, and, take that and then just kind of add it with your own spice. I don't know if that was the perfect example, but just kind of like create your own masterpiece using your strengths and a little bit of their strengths. I guess I'm more like someone who uses examples, but like recently I kind of went through this phase where, not too long ago, a couple of days, where I was like, I need to hire a graphic designer and a photographer. And I'm like kind of just doing well for myself right now, where I was like, okay, but like there was other things that behind the scenes people don't know that I need to take care of, which is like debt, right? That is the most important thing for me. So kind of moving on, even just from the copying, just knowing the resources that you have and working with those. Because if you compare yourself with someone on Instagram, if I would compare myself to like Kim Kardashian, it's like her mom was already successful, which helped her. Like, of course she has the talent, and that's what you should be telling yourself. Like, of course I have the talent. I have the talent to build a brand, to move forward. However, I don't have the Kris Jenner in my life. I don't have that resource. So I can't compare myself with the person who has that resource. I have to work with what I have. And so, recently I was like, I need to hire a graphic designer and a photographer. And so I reached out to a photographer and she's like, yeah, so it's $2,700 starting off, which great for her. She does amazing work. I wish I could work for her because she actually like helps you with your personal brand too. And as a personal brand coach, even though I help people with that, like I still need help myself sometimes. And there was a little bit of me that I was like, oh man, like I need this. Or I'm like, I can't afford it, and I realized, oh, like the people who hire her, they're at a different level. They're at a $2,700 photographer level. I'm not. And if I wait until I'm at that level, then I'm not going to do anything. If I wait until I have those beautiful, perfect photos, I'm never going to post. I'm never going to share my message. I'm never going to make income. I'm never going to make an impact. And I'm just literally going to be hitting a wall. So I told myself, okay, well, I can't afford this $2,700 photographer. But what can I do? And I'm like, I could repurpose old photos. Perfect. Let's do this, And so here I am showing up, And it's important to know that, like, work with the resources and the resources you have and the strengths that you have. Yeah.
Would you say collaboration is still a big deal in this medium, where if you don't have what you need, or you can't pay for it, you can find someone that needs what you have and then just exchange it in some way? Is still a healthy thing to pursue?
I think if the person has in the past reached out to you for your service or for what you do, or talked about what they wish they had that you have, then starting that conversation, because I know times right now are sensitive with rightfully so. And in the past, I've had friends who do reach out to collaborate, and the person's like, do you not value me? Like, what do you think? Like, I pay my bills. Like, how dare you ask me that kind of, and it hasn't been a healthy exchange of words. Right. So it's important, like, to not just assume that somebody will want to collab with you. And I think right now yeah, like I said, if somebody has reached out for your services, although, yeah, I mean, I'm looking at like all my clients who have done this, because I've seen the fashion designer who I worked with, I know that she did a collaboration with someone, but they needed what she had. They wanted what she had. And so they finally were like, oh, remember that time you asked for this? Okay, let's exchange. And so she found like this photographer she could work with. And now that she grew, now she's hired a photographer. So yeah, I think it is, collaborations could still be done, but you have to build those relationships before reaching out for the collaborations. I think that's something to keep in mind too.
What do you think it's the way to go when you want to be a pro? And by a pro, I mean you want to make money in social media. So you're there for, you're not there for the likes, you're not there for the follows. You're there to put a business in motion. But you're just starting. What's the way to start correctly and to start properly, and not doing maybe what are the things that you can avoid at this point?
I would say doing all the things, and this is going to sound like a big contradiction, which I give myself permission for, because if you're into Myers-Briggs, ENFPs were like apparently walking contradictions, but I just have to find the right words and then it'll make sense. But I think that, it is like, especially as a personal brand strategist and the way that I help people, I celebrate, pulling things from yourself that you can use to make your brand unique. That doesn't mean that you should be actually like running all these things at the same time. So for example, like Rodrigo, I know you and I have a business together. I have my podcast, I have my YouTube channel, I have my social media freelancing business that I'm like transitioning out of, and then I have like my coaching business. Those are things that are still alive. They're all there, but I'm not in a certain quarter of my life, like a yearly, quarter. We're in quarter 2, I think already. I'm not doing all those things. So I told myself I can't do YouTube videos. I haven't done YouTube videos for a year because I was trying to grow my business. I was trying to build that credibility as going from a social media strategist to a personal brand coach. And that needed to be my focus. And now that I'm known for that, I can move on to the next thing if I feel confident. If I feel like I'm going to like be crying every night because I don't have my crap together, I would like not advise myself to move to the next thing. And right now, one of the things I'm doing is like cleaning up all of the back end of my business, the things people don't see, all the programs that I've written. Like I had I do one-on-one coaching, but for my one-on-one coaching clients, I also had like a course for them available. So if they ask me questions like, how do I use hashtags on Instagram? I just would send them the video because I created like a side course. And that side course is something I'm trying to restructure and rebuild and clean up. So in order to, go full time on YouTube again, I need to clean that thing before I dive in. And if I decide to do YouTube, which I am going to, instead of telling myself I'm going to do 4 videos a week or 1 video a week, I'm going to be like, I'm going to feel successful with just 2 videos a month. So giving yourself, just being more realistic of what you can do. And so back to your question, like if you're going to be successful at what you're doing, just give yourself at least 30 days. I usually say 90 days of focusing on that thing. I'm not saying that has to be what you do forever. I actually am, I hate niching down. But when I started my business, I was doing like a little bit of videography, a little bit of social media strategy, and every email that I was sending out to pitch myself, or when I was building my website, like it was all over the place. And I had to tell myself, okay, I'm just going to go hard with social media strategy. First off, it's cheaper because I don't have to buy all this filming equipment. I just can use my laptop and use the resources that I have, build that social media strategy business. And once I had that going, I was able to then say, my creative heart wants something else. I want to start a podcast. So I was able to start that podcast. That doesn't mean I'm not, just now I'm not picking one thing. But when I started, I decided, okay, I'm going to focus these 90 days, try to get social media strategy clients. Once I got my first $2,000 client, like my biggest client, then I was like, okay, what's the next step? Okay, get another client, right? So I'm not saying niche down, but definitely focus on the project or the business thing you're starting for at least 30 days to build it, 90 days to see results, right? So yeah.
This is actually really great advice because I have a problem with this. And I think, it's something that I've learned to kind of have to do, but I still have a problem with it because it is hard, I'm very complex. I have a lot of different interests and a lot of different skills that don't always overlap as far as like in the different industries that I'm in. And so something that I have struggled with over the years is finding that focus of doing this one thing for a period of time and focusing on just the one thing. And it's kind of like, it's like micro niching a little bit, where it's like, I'm going to niche down for this like short-term period, but then move on to the next thing once it's grown. But it's really kind of like, how do you know when to go to the next phase?
I would say like when you really hate what you're doing, like that is what helped me move on to the next thing. Like I feel, okay, well, I don't hate what I'm doing, but I was hating some of the clients that I was working with. So when I was doing social media strategy actually when I moved on from social media strategy to deciding, oh my God, I could coach. Like I didn't even know that was a thing. Actually, the first advice I could say is like reach out to the people who are ahead of you. That was really helpful for me. I worked with a business coach who the first few months that we worked together, she did really help me and definitely was able to grow that confidence of selling and also saying like, oh wait, I'm only charging $2,000 for social media strategy. I can charge $2,000 for coaching and do what I love. What? Like I didn't know this was even possible. And it really comes down to kind of reflecting on what you are doing and what things make you happy doing, and can you charge for those things that make you happy? But obviously creating a plan, right? Because like what makes me happy is like talking to people and like traveling, and that can obviously make us money, but can it make me money right now, right? So, or I think what it is important also is kind of having that balance of like impact and income. And that's why I go back to move on to the next thing when you're unhappy. So when I was doing social media strategy, I was unhappy. mainly because I was doing that to myself. I was saying yes to everything that I didn't want to make ends meet, obviously. But even with the client, like now I put my foot down when they're like, oh, can we throw in video in there for $2,000 too? I'm like, no, that's actually a separate business. Like that's not even a part of my social media packages. Like, nope, so we have to add on to that. And even with coaching, right? I'm like, no, I coach you, I give you the resources, but I'm not writing your captions for you. So being very specific and knowing what are the things that make me happy. Once you figure that out, okay, what things can I, in my services or my business, can I add or take out that, I mean, no job is going to be perfect. Even if you have the dream job, right? Like even as business owners, there's some things that we hate, like maybe accounting, right? Even though if we hire someone, we still kind of have to be on top of our accounting, right? Even if we do hire a bookkeeper, there's always going to be things in your role that you don't love. But asking yourself, like, why am I doing this thing? Like, if it's not making me money right now, and if it's not even making me happy, why am I building it and then, saying goodbye to that stuff? Yeah.
Do you think we're entering a new type of economy, of creative economy now? Like we're living into a new stage of money exchange that we haven't had before online?
I think there's so much more opportunity to make money online. I mean, Romina, I feel like, you don't give yourself that much credit, but I feel like you've done so much and you've inspired me to think outside of the box when it comes to making money. I think there is no excuse right now for us to increase our income. And I think a lot of the times people do stop themselves from potentially making money is the what are people going to think of me kind of concern. I've been a victim of that where it's like, oh yeah, I could make money doing social media strategy and like starting a new business. Hi, Rodrigo, right? But like, will people think that because I'm starting this new thing that my business, Karla Gregg, isn't doing well? And funny thing is actually when I officially to the public launched our business, people were like, oh, are you not doing the coaching thing anymore? And like, I don't know if people were like waiting for me to like give up on that. I was like, no, I'm still doing the coaching thing, but I'm also doing this thing. It's called having multiple streams of income. And Rodrigo, I know you just released an email where you wrote how during the pandemic you had to do that, right? And sometimes it's not even because we're completely failing. It's just trying to test things out. Like right now on my tabs, I actually have Fiverr open because I'm curious about it. Like I'm doing really well in my business, and there's still part of me that's like, let me test out this thing because I heard Fiverr was really good to like make easy but good money if you already kind of have a system with your things, which I do. Like I can create graphics for people in like 2 minutes basically if I wanted to on Canva. So like I was like, I wonder if I could like make some extra money on a Saturday on Fiverr. Like why not? But I think people stop themselves from having those income opportunities because they're like, oh man, if I start selling that jewelry line that I've always wanted to, people are going to think my coaching business isn't doing well. I'm so dumb. Like I'm so over that. I'm so passionate about that. Like I literally just talked about having a full-time job. I don't have a full-time job, but there's those moments that I genuinely needed a full-time job. Like I was almost to the point in my, like these 3 years I've been up and down in my business and like where I wasn't going to even have money to pay my bills, but I was like, I don't know if I want to apply to full-time jobs because then I'm not giving it my all on my coaching business. And I was like, well, honey, you're not going to be able to give it your all if you don't have internet because you can't even pay for your internet, right? So it was like, you need to get at least a part-time job, And I think this entrepreneurial highlight reel that people put out there really puts pressure on like people who don't have Kim Kardashian resources to make that more money for themselves, right? And then we'll never get to that Kim Kardashian level. So yeah, I think there's
what?
You just crushed Rodrigo's
dreams. That was the plan. I mean, from the beginning.
Rodrigo wants to live that Kardashian life.
Well, that's what was promised by Romina. When we started working together, she told me this is the goal.
Well, you can just like right now that you're making some changes in your personal life, very healthy lifestyle changes. Like you could monetize that, start documenting it, you know, show your bod, make some money.
Show your bod on TikTok, of course, right?
Yeah,
Of
right.
course, of
Or
course.
OnlyFans account.
OnlyFans. I have an
I-
OnlyFans account. It's doing very well. Thank you very much.
All right, before we go off the rails here, I do want to bring it back to something that you said about having that pressure of making your creativity be your sole source of income. And there's this idea, it's like taboo, right? Like if you have more than one stream of income, it's like, well, is it because like it's not doing well? Or it's like, well, why are you trying to make more money? Or like, why are you doing this thing that's different from the thing that I thought that you were doing? And it's not only just the opinions and the pressure of outside sources, but it's also from within. It's like this mindset of not settling. And I think that's really what it comes down to, at least for me, where it's like, yeah, if I make X amount of dollars off of this one thing, if I want to make another amount of money doing something else on top of that, what's wrong with that? Like, why is that a bad thing? You know, it's just like, if I can do it and if it's not burning me out, or if I enjoy doing it, or if it's helping me to reach a certain milestone or a personal goal that I have for myself, then why not do it?
Right. I think, honestly, I think it comes down to people like us and then people who are above kind of like sharing their story. And I think that's why story is so powerful, because a lot of the times consumers, audience, whatever you want to call people watching, right? Like they get so stuck on the end result that they're seeing their role model living out. Like, for example, when you think about people like two great authors, J.K. Rowling and Elizabeth Gilbert, like right now they are living their dream. They're writers, they're successful, but that's all we know, right? Of course, they've told us their story, how they had to take on full-time jobs and part-time jobs and sweep floors or whatever they had to do, be moms at the same time. But people don't listen to that. Like we don't, our inner critic, we are technically putting pressure on ourselves because that's all we're seeing. We're just seeing the end result. No, but I want that end result like right now. And because I don't have it right now, you know, I'm putting this pressure on myself. And I think that's where the whole doing too many things, like, am I living out my fullest potential because I'm not just doing writing and I'm not just living off of my creativity, which then you start hating your creativity. I know I went through that with YouTube. Like I love YouTube, and I loved making YouTube videos. Like I loved putting myself out of my comfort zone. I have a series called Never Have I Ever. That was my favorite thing to do. I loved editing those videos. First off, I hate editing, but when it came down to those videos, I was like, yes, I'm so ready for this. And then because when I became a freelancer, I wasn't getting a lot of views as a YouTuber. So then I was like, I don't think this is gonna be my full-time career, you know? I put so much pressure on myself, and because it wasn't the thing making me money, I was like, I'm just gonna completely let it go. Instead of saying, well, what is gonna make me happy? Okay, like still doing the YouTube thing, but now I could just make one video a month. And just doing that one video a month is gonna make me happy, but I'm also gonna accept that it's not gonna make me money, right? Right now at least. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I think, not just a society pressure, but it's ourselves kind of feeling like we have to already have the end result.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of end results, we're just about ready to wrap up here. And before we end this interview, Karla, do you have anything that you would like to plug? This is your moment to flex. You can share your website, your social media handles, any videos you want people to watch. Just have at it.
Yeah, so I would definitely suggest going to my website, karlagregg.com. I offer personal brand coaching. So if you guys are kind of stuck in your brand, but mainly you want to know how you could work within yourself and show that to the world. That's really what I help people with. And then once we really discover who you are and the potential that you could bring out to this world, then we kind of create like the strategy. And so you could feel more free and share your story and your services online. So I have a personal branding program. It's one-on-one. And then if you just want to dive into the story branding of things, I do 2-hour intensive where I listen to your story. I am just like the Oprah of your world. I ask you all the deep questions that people probably don't ask you often. So I could really pull that story out of you and use your story so you can make income, impact, and the influence that you want to create online and in this world. So those are the 2 things that I offer. Definitely go to my website. And if you just you're like, no, I don't want to spend money right now, I just want to be entertained, Karla, definitely go to my Instagram, which is Karla Gregg as well, and check out my YouTube videos, because I'll definitely be posting videos about limiting beliefs pretty soon. I'm excited to create these videos that can help more people kind of break through negativity and stuff like that. Yeah.
Very cool. I'm looking forward to that video series. And if you want to see more from CreateIRL, then please head over to CreateIRL.com. You can get your free membership, or you can become a pro, where you can ask our special guest questions. You get invited to exclusive VIP events where you get to hang out with Rodrigo and myself. Sometimes I don't show up because, I'm extra VIP. So sometimes I just no, I'm just kidding.
Tier 3.
Rodrigo and I are usually always there to hang out with everybody. And our whole system is about bringing professionals onto our platform and meeting our members so that these professionals can be more accessible and the creative process can be more accessible to current professionals and people who are up and coming, creatives who are up and coming. Do you have any last words, Rodrigo?
Karla is a member. Karla is a pro member of CreateIRL. So
oh yeah, let's not forget that.
Yeah, so she's
I could definitely speak for CreateIRL. There's so many great people in this community. So I mean, if you're wanting to connect with professionals who have been there, done that, and can help you brainstorm and stuff, I think it's such a good group of people, and you guys have such raw conversations, but also professional conversations, which I think is always a good balance. So.
Brilliant. And just letting everyone know before we go that our TikTok is coming, and Romina will be doing some magic tricks, and I'll be dancing. And we're looking forward to having all of you there watching us.
All right. For
with
those
our
of
million
you,
followers.
For those of you who don't understand sarcasm, that's not happening. All right, everybody. Remember to subscribe and follow us at CreateIRL on Twitter and Instagram, and check out CreateIRL.com. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you real soon.
Bye-bye.